Darcy wrapped her arm around Streak's muzzle, and peeled her lips. I peeled back her lips. This will taste good, I said. You'll like it. Crazy, I was brushing a dog's teeth. It was funny. Streaks licked it up and smacked her lips as I worked the toothbrush around her spiky teeth. Then I got the hose and squirted water into her mouth. She barked at it. Darcy ran over and turned off the water. There, I said, squatting with my arms over my knees. How can anyone complain about your breath now? Streak knows me like, hey, thanks, that was great. When Darcy came back, I handed her the toothbrush. She ran inside and put it away. Streak jumped up out of the pool and shook. Um, Already the sun was drying her back and black and white coat. I gave her a hug. This is the cleanest you have been since you were born, I bet. Streak sat and scratched her back leg working. And believe it or not, you smell sweet, sort of. Late that afternoon, when mom got home, I was sitting on the grass with the Streak, trying to think of what to say in the class. Was toothpaste better than mouthwash, or maybe dogs should just stop eating fish head and carrying around dried up dead toads? Mom parked in the garage and came out. She kissed on the top of my head and then down close to Pet Streak. Oh my. She scrunched her nose. What? I asked. Her breath smells like a peppermint swamp. Maybe I needed a stronger toothpaste. Chapter 19, Naruto. For the special occasion, Mr. Purdy bought this time to show me what you have got. Raised eyebrows to school. All right, junior detectives, it's presentation day. You ready? Yes, Mr. Purdy, we said. Props were everywhere, handmade posters, photographs, books, all kind of objects, and two living creature. Streak, who smelled like toothpaste, and which I rubbed onto her teeth, and the last possible minute, an Ace's parrot, Boo Boo, in a cage in the back of the room. Julio had made our chart, which he was hiding until we were ready. Mr. Purdy raised his hand. Okay, listen up. I'm going to draw team name from my coffee cup. Whoever I draw is up, bring it on. Rubin shouted. Mr. Purdy reached into his cup. I crossed my finger. Not me and Julio. Please, not us first. Mr. Purdy looked up. Ace and Doreen. I sat back relieved. Ace got to his parrot and brought it to the front of the room. He held up the cage. Say hello, Boo Boo. Hello, blah, hello. The class thought that was hilarious. Streak's ears shot straight up. Mr. Purdy leaned back on the edge of his desk. Tell us what your research question is, Doreen. Ace thought of it, she said. He has been teaching Boo Boo how to talk. He can say hello, goodbye, awesome, and feed me. So our question was, you can teach a parrot to talk, but can you teach it to sing? Ace set Boo Boo's cage on Mr. Purdy's desk, next to the terrarium that held our class pet Manly Stanley, a centipede. Manly slithered under his rock, probably afraid Bobo would eat him. Bobo squawked. Bobo, Ace said, sing happy birthday. Squawk. You can do it. Come on. Squawk. Ack. Streak barked once. I clamped a hand over her muzzle. Ace dug into his pocket. Here, if you sing, I'll give you some Fritos. Mr. Purdy laughed. Your parrot likes Fritos? Yeah, and sweet potato chips. Ah, quack. Happy birthday to you, Ace sang. Come on, Boo Boo, sing for us. Happy birthday to you, squawk. Amazing. The whole class stood up and whopped and cheered and generally went bonkers until Mr. Purdy hissed, shh. Well, we settled down. Ace gave Boo Boo a piece of Frito. Terrific, Ace, Mr. Purdy said. You too, Doreen. Did you both teach that to the bird? Yeah, Ace said. Doreen is a good teacher too. Excellent. Ace and Doreen took Bobo and to the back of the room. Mr. Purdy reached out in the coffee cup. Who is next? I crossed my finger. Not us, not us. Willie and Rubin. Rubin stood up so fast his chair fell over. He grabbed his box of prop and ran up the front with Willie. Streak sat up, alert. I could imagine her thinking, this school stuff is so cool. Bring on the show. Start by giving us your research question, boys. Rubin swept his hand toward the box like a magician. In this box, we have two complete sets of something I got in Japan. He nodded to Willie. Show them. Willie reached in and brought out two manga books, the Japanese graphic novel you read backwards. Our question is, which is better, Naruto or Inuyasha? Naruto, someone called out. No, Inuyasha. Shh, Mr. Purdy hissed. Let them continue. Rubin grabbed a handful of Naruto's books from the box. Naruto stories are funny and interesting. They make you want to keep on reading. Naruto is a boy about 12-year-old and he just wants to impress people. Then there Kakashi, who's skilled in combat, and Gaara, who has the will to kill. Willie grabbed a few Inuyashas. And Inuyasha is about 18, he said. He's a half demon and half white-haired guy. Sometimes he's good and sometimes he's not. He wanted to become a full demon by collecting shards of the Shikon jewel. Once he gets all the shards, he can piece them together and make the jewel of 4 souls and become a full demon. I see, Mr. Purdy said. So what's your conclusion and why? Rubin pinched his jaw. Well, Naruto is better. He's not that smart, but he wants to be a best ninja ever. But Inuyasha has better art. Mr. Purdy looked at Willie. Is that your conclusion to Willie? To tell the truth, Mr. Purdy, I'm still trying to figure out how to read backwards. The class roared. I hugged Streak close. She didn't stink at all. How could Mom and Stella think she did? They just didn't want a dog, that was all. Mom was going to make me find Streak other home. I just knew it. I slumped in my chair as Willie and Reuben went back to their seats. Next is up, Shayla and Maya, I whispered. Chapter 20, A Nose for News. The class went wild over Maya and Shayla's discovery question. Why do you boys have to smell something? Or are they just weird? Ace pumped his fist and shouted, right on. All us guys stuck our nose up and started sniffing the air. Even Mr. Purdy looked amused. Sheila and Maya smiled and waited. I remember when Maya had said, if I was you two, I wouldn't even come to school on Tuesday. Aye. Mr. Purdy held up his hand for a quiet proceed, girls. Maya and Sheila prop was a big poster. They taped newspaper over it so no one could see it before they were ready. Sheila uncovered it and stood up. Photographs of me and Julio. Mr. Purdy bent close to look and grinned. This should be interesting. I leaned over my desk and squinted at the photos. Maya grabbed a pencil to use it as a pointer. Here, we have Julio smelling his armpit. Even I laughed at that. Streak barked too. Shh, I said, no barking in the school. And then I thought, wait, how did they get that picture? It was on our street and I was in it too. I wasn't smelling my armpit, Julio shouted. I was scratching my nose with my arms. Sheila went on. Here we have Julio and Calvin scooping up dog poop with a shovel and then smelling their hands. Yeah, but you stepped in it, Julio called from the back row. I don't know what you are talking about, Sheila said. Oh, yes, you do. You were hiding down by the Calvin's house. You were sneaking through the bushes where he throws all the... And look at this pic. Maya interrupted. Calvin is kissing his dog. The class crackled up. No, I wasn't. I was Forget it. I was stuck. Smelling streaked breath would sound worse than kissing her. And then here is picture of Julio smelling his finger after throwing a dried up dead toad down the road. Mr. Purdy grinned. I remember flinging dried toad myself. I wonder did he ever capture a dog foot in the jar. Maya Sheila went on and on. After a while, I didn't care anymore. I didn't even care that I won my bag um, of shrimp bet with Julio. So what? Boys smell stuff. Big deal. Anyway, Maya and Sheila didn't know that all that smelling was part of our research. When we told our story, we would take their apart. Well, Mr. Purdy said, you girls sure have nose for news. So what's your conclusion? Maya glanced over me, then back at Julio. We decided that boys are just weird. That's all. It's not their fault. They can't help it. Good, bad, or disgusting, they gotta smell it. Rubin jumped up. Stinks forever. Mr. Purdy raised an eyebrows toward Maya and Sheila. Does the weirdness of the boy include your teacher, girls? Oh no, Mr. Purdy, not you. Sheila looked shocked. He chuckled. I appreciate that. But you forgot the good stuff. We boys like a smell, our favorite, our popcorn at the movies and teriyaki meat sticks at the beach, right, boys? We all jumped up, making smirky faces at the girls. Mrs. Leandro from the class next door appeared in the door with her "You are disturbing my class, teacher. Look." Mr. Purdy nodded at her, grinning. Okay, class, pipe down, back to work. Mrs. Leandro vanished and Mr. Purdy went over and shut the door. Who is next? He pulled up another slip of paper that looked up and winked at me. Chapter 21. A good stink too. I set Streak on the floor. Julio and I stood up. Maya and Sheila had just walked all over us. We'd have to say something pretty good to put ourselves back together again. Come on, girl, I whispered to Streak at Julio as Julio got our chart back from back of the room. Streak followed me to the front. Mr. Purdy squatted down to pet her. She licked his hand. And what's your name? He said. Streak, I said. You can pick her up if you want. Mr. Purdy lifted Streak up and showed her to class. This is the dog I wrote about in my essay, I said. Ah, one with the short attention span. Doreen leaned over and asked, is that the dog you were kissing, Calvin? I ignored her. Mr. Purdy sat on the table and set Streak in his lap. Okay, boys, what did you research? Stinks, Julio said. Lots of stinks. See, Maya said, jumping up. We told you they were smelling stuff. Yeah, but you don't know why, Julio said. Sure I do. You can't help it. Mr. Purdy hushed. Tell us your discovery question, boys. Julio looked at me. I nodded. Okay, this is it. Why do dogs have terrible breath and what can you do about it? I love it, Mr. Purdy said. Tell me because I know lots of people who would like to know. Julio gave Sheila and our traitor friend Maya a superior look because we had Mr. Purdy on our side. We were smelling things, Julio said, because we wanted to grade stuff bad to worse. See? Because some stings are more worse than the other stink. Just worse, Julio, Mr. Purdy corrected, not more worse. Yeah, sure, Mr. Purdy. But anyway, let's start with the least worst. And that's one is the stink that is only in your mind. Huh, you can't talk about that. I waited for more. Mr. Purdy, still petting Streak, cocked his head. Tell us about that one, Julio. Julio grinned. Well, you know what? I think Rubin can explain it better than me. Rubin shut his eye to make it look like he was sleeping at his desk. Somebody wake him up, Mr. Purdy said. We don't want him to miss anything. Doreen reached over and slammed Rubin's desk. Rubin jumped and sputtered. What? Julio was pumped now. Okay, the best things are like when you pet the dog and smell your hand after. That's not too bad. But then you got to do heavy duty stinks like boys' bathroom, fresh dog dew, the dead stuff like toads, and a toilet hole, I added. Mr. Purdy tilted his head. Toilet hole? You know, The part under the toilet, the sewer pipe. Yeah, that. Julio shook his head. Oh man, that was unco nasty. Half the girls were making faces. Some were covering their ears. They not only didn't want to smell bad stuff, they didn't even want to hear about it. Look, I said, holding up the chart. We put stink in order. The worst at the top. The first absolute worst is the toilet hole. That's the sewer pipe. Then the dog do. Death door, dog foot. The class burst out laughing over that one. I went on. And then after that, you got the dog breath, cat breath, pig breath, and possibly white rat breath. Julio felt the tip of his nose when I said that one. Mr. Purdy looked at the poster, thinking, why did you came up with this question, boys? Julio hooked a thumb towards Streak. Because of that dog. I nodded. Yeah, my mom and Stella, she lives with us. Well, they say Streak stinks and they don't want her in the house because of it. And I wanted to think of a way, clean her up. So he can keep the dog, Julio added. He might lose it. Mr. Purdy says, why? I shrugged because she stinks. Mr. Purdy sniffed Streak. She just smells like a dog to me. It's more about her breath. The smell, the dog breath. Mr. Purdy shouted. Mr. Purdy grinned. You know what, Calvin? I think the class should get involved with this. Who wants to come up and see if this dog has a bad breath? Ew, not me. Sick. It's not bad, I said. I kind of brushed her teeth before school. Oh man, any takers? Mr. Purdy asked. Nobody? Well, Mr. Purdy says, I guess we'll never know. I looked at Streak. Her tongue was jiggling in the hot classroom. I'll do it, Calvin. Shayla pushed her chair back and stood. That's brave of you, Shayla, Mr. Purdy said. And I'm sure these boys will appreciate your courage. Shayla came forward. She glanced at me. She smiled. I half smiled back. Oh, thanks. No problem, Calvin. Mr. Purdy tucked Streak under his arm. Everyone lurched forward to see if Shayla would gag and throw up or something. She leaned close, Streak, and sniffed. Streak licked her nose. Shayla didn't even wipe it off. Mr. Purdy raised his eyebrows. Well, it's not great, Mr. Purdy, but it's little minty. That must be the toothpaste. It also smells like fish. I had to agree there was that. But you know what? Shayla went on. Most dogs have bad breath, but it is not a bad stink. It's a good stink. That is what I say, exactly what I said. I looked at Shayla. Mr. Purdy turned to me. But your mom and the girl who live with you don't quite see in that way. Is that right, Calvin? Pretty much. Mr. Purdy rubbed his hand over the Streak's head. Some people are dog people and some people aren't. Do you have a dog, Mr. Purdy? Julio said. Sure do. I looked at Mr. Purdy. Does his breath stink? Sometime. Just before the bell rang for recess, Mr. Purdy announced the winner of the detective research project, and it wasn't a team. It was a person. Shayla. Everyone clapped, but no one was louder than me. Chapter 22. The Secret. Later that day, just before dinner, I was in my room. Then Ledward drove up. Streak ran out of the garage to greet him. He tossed her and heard the silvery blue tail of an Aku. There you go. Streak snapped in the middle of air and took it out into the yard. That's the problem, I thought, watching through my window. That's the dried up toads. I went outside. How's it? Ledward asked, clamping a big hand down on my shoulder. Good. He kept his hand on my shoulder and turned it to the steady Streak, now ripping away the Aku tail. I call that fish jerky for dogs. Good for their teeth and gums. I nodded, but it stink up her breath, like when people eat garlic for their health. What's garlic? The smelly stuff that's good for you. Do you eat it? I laughed. He laughed. If I did, your mama wouldn't let me in your house. Really? He nodded. Maybe not even on the street of your house. Oh, Ledward, do you think you could, uh, maybe bring Streak something to eat that doesn't drink? He thought, and then his eyes brightened. Corn. I got away too much in my garden. Next time I'll bring her couple ears to chew on, and how's that? Sounds good to me. Ledward grinned and gave my shoulder a squeeze. Let's go inside. Your mama said she was cooking shepherd's pie tonight. The kitchen smelled like heaven. Mom was at the stove steaming broccoli. The shepherd pie was cooling on the counter. Stella was making a salad with Darcy set the table. While Darcy set the table, Edward gave Mom a hug from behind. Looks good. You're hungry like a horse. I grabbed Streak's bowl and reached under the kitchen counter for the bag of dog food. I fed her earlier, honey. Mom said, you did? She was begging. Oh, she smelled better. Did you bathe her? Oh, yeah, in Darcy's pool. In her swimming pool? We rinsed it out. Mom shook her head. Well, Streak smells better, though her breath is still fishy. I glanced at Leeward. He made an oops face. Then I remembered what Shella had said. It's a good stink, Mom, not a bad stink. Mom coughed and laughed. Well, I never thought of it quite like that before, but it does make sense. If you love your dog, you don't care, right? He threw me. You mean I can keep a Streak? Mom cocked her head. Why on the earth would you ask that? Well, because her breath, and how you always wash your hand after you pet her, and how you complain when she is in the house. There, whoa, slow down. Here, there, Cal. Mom leaned over and looked me in the eye. Is that what you have been thinking? That I'm going to make you uh, give her up because she smells? Well, yeah. Mom cupped the side of my face with her hand. I would never ever make you give up your dog, Calvin. Never. You wouldn't? Of course not. Do you think I am a heartless? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. I love Streak as much as you do, honey. Now I was really confused. I looked at Stella. She puckered her lips into a fat smooch. Mom kissed the top of my head. She, keep giving her bath. It helps. After dinner, Darcy and I watched TV. Darcy had PT propped up to watch too. So I guess there were three of us. Mom and Ledward had gone on to the dark patio to talk. The bathroom door was open and I could see Stella washing her face. I was thinking about how I'd gotten so worried about something that wasn't even real when I noticed something and nearly choked. Dars, I grabbed her arm. Look. Our mouth was hung open because now Stella was brushing her teeth with the same red toothbrush we used that one time on Streak. She took the brush out and looked at it, moving her tongue around it. Something tastes bad. Oops, I thought you said it was her old one, I whispered. Well, it was in the bottom drawer where the old stuff is. When Stella saw us gawking at her, she kicked the door shut. Me and Darcy looked at each other, then raced outside, bursting into the laughter. We stumbled into the weeds across the street, out of the range. If Stella heard us, she'd make us tell her what we were laughing at, and then she'll kill us. Streak trotted out of the garage like, what's going on? She grabbed up the sun-dried toad on the street and bought it with her. I struggled it out of her mouth and flung it into the bushes. Don't chew on those. Streak looked into the bushes where it had gone, her ears standing up. I couldn't stop giggling. Don't ever tell Stella, Dars. Okay, never, ever, ever. Tell who what? Stella, the toothbrush. Dars looked at me with a straight face. What toothbrush? What she doesn't know won't hurt her, right? Yeah, Darcy, but it might make her sick. I grinned and looked back towards the house. Calvin, what? You got any money? Some. Why? We got to buy her a new toothbrush. I turned back. Why? Darcy looked up at me. Okay, okay, I said. We'll get her a new one. Tomorrow we'll sneak it in. Red? Yeah, yeah. I smiled to myself. It served Stella right for complaining about Streak. But Darcy was right. We'd get her a new one. You know what, Darcy? What? You are nicer than me. I am? Yeah, because I would buy her a pink one. Stella hates pink. Exactly. Just as we were about to head back to the house, Streak ran out of the bushes and sat at my feet, the dry toad up in her mouth. I squatted down and looked her in the eye. You are incurable, you know that? Absolutely 100% incurable. Streak dropped the toad. She wanted you to have it, Darcy said, squatting down to pet her. I wish I had a dog that loved me that much. That's it.